today. You know, oftentimes I get into the number side of things with people, and I start to talk about the numbers of real estate and ROI and cash flow and all that stuff. And I don't want to talk about any of that today. I want to talk about people. I want to talk about the people side of the business. I know that you work very closely with a lot of real estate investors, but before we go there, take me back. You went to your first acre in, was it 2003? Is that right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Wow.
Jared's the facts guy with remembering dates for me, but yeah.
So you went to Acre. It was actually you. This is a story that not a lot of people know, and I love it. Is you were the one that actually dragged Jared, somewhat kicking and screaming, to the Acre because you saw the potential of real estate well before he saw the potential of real estate. Is that correct?
It's correct. Yeah. Who would have thought that it would go where it went? But yes, it's true.
That's fantastic. So I love that. And take me back to what it was like for you back then when you went for the first time to Acre. And Jared, because I heard his story, he was sitting at the back, arms crossed, not interested, didn't want to do real estate. You're quite different. I believe you were sitting at the front. And what was your experience like? And take me all the way back there.
Well, for me, it was, I'd read books and had this thing in the back of my mind, like, sure, would be great if we could invest in real estate. Like, wouldn't that be great for my retirement, our retirement? But as at that time, 24, 25-year-old, I couldn't fathom how that was going to be possible with my resources. So to sit in that room and see all these fellow real estate investors and see live real people, like a huge room full of people doing it, was super inspiring and made it super possible in my mind that this could actually happen. So yeah, it was very exciting for me.
So what do Krista, I know you work with a lot of real estate investors on a day-to-day basis. And, I feel that one of the things REIN and Acre, and one of the things that we deliver to people probably more than anything else, and we never talk about it this way, but to me, what we're actually giving people is confidence. They often, they just need the confidence to make the decision, sign the check, sign the paperwork, do the thing they probably kind of already know they need to do. What are your thoughts on that? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I agree with that. It's like anything. If you're the only one doing something, it feels really daunting and overwhelming and potentially weird. But then if you're one of many people doing something and you have other people encouraging you and doing the same thing, it feels normal. So I think that is the absolute brilliance of the program and of the system is, what's the saying? Who you surround yourself with is what you'll become. And of course, if you want to be a real estate investor, you should surround yourself in real estate investors.
Well, and that's really, really well said. And so few people do that. It makes sense intellectually what you're saying, but they get uncomfortable. And so why do you think it is that people resist the urge to go to these events? They know that, wow, everyone who goes to these events seems to do really well in real estate. They end up acquiring 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 15, 20, hundreds of properties. So why do people, you think, resist going?
I actually think that it's that they can't imagine how it's possible. So then, another saying is it's the start that stops most people. So going makes them have to think for even just a little second that it's possible for them. And I can imagine that might be where Jared was at. He thought, I'm not going to be a real estate investor. That's why even waste my weekend going to that. So I think that's what would stop most people. I guess that's the great thing about me is I've often been okay putting myself in situations that seem out of reach or crazy. And the truth is, if I could look at people looking at someone like now, Jared and I, we didn't set out to go so big in real estate, but that's what it's become. So maybe they look and think, well, I could never have hundreds of properties, but there's plenty of people in the room with just maybe 1 or 2 or just starting. So yeah, it's looking at it. You don't have to look at the top person. You have to look at where you can start, and then who knows what's possible.
Well, I think you said a couple things there that are really, really powerful. The first thing is, especially at REIN, we are trying very hard to change the conversation about real estate, because it's not about hundreds of properties and thousands of doors and multifamily this. If the average individual, partners, couples, single individuals couldn't have 2, 3, 5 real estate properties, that can change someone's financial future and for generations to come, not just this generation, but for generations to come. So you don't need hundreds. And I think that's what I hear you saying. And that's really, that's really, really powerful, because a lot of people think, wow, I can't be like Jared and Krista. I mean, they got hundreds of properties, have done 400 deals. I can't be like Patrick Francie. I can't be like all, and that's not what this is about, is it?
No, and in fact, the funny thing about that is, were Jared and I doing it over again? I mean, hindsight's 2020, right? We wouldn't buy so many properties. There was just no need to go as big as we did. It's all good and it's paid off, but we created a lot of stress and strain in our lives at times that wasn't necessary. So part of our passion with helping people is why are you doing it, and what do you need? 100 properties, or do you really just need maybe 15? Is that a big goal, and will that be better for your life? Now
this is so good, because again, most people that a lot of times that I do interviews, a lot of times when I'm speaking, a lot of people want the nuts and bolts. They want the details. They want the cash flow, and they want to get into the numbers. But Krista, what you and I are talking about right now is totally the foundation to sophisticated investors, understanding why you want what you want, having a clear goal in terms of where you want this thing to go, and then figuring out how to get there. And I think that's really, really important. And just, I got to bring it back home to that, because so few organizations do that. If, in fact, I would stress, I don't know how you feel about this, but I would stress that knowing what I know now, if I went to a real estate conference or a real estate event and they immediately started talking about numbers, I would pretty much know they don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would agree.
Now you talked about people stopping themselves from achieving what they want because they can't visualize what's possible. Do you have any advice on how maybe you did it, or how other people can do it if they have to think of what's possible, and they got to put themselves there before they actually get there in order to get there? Now, that was a bit of a mouthful, but you know where I'm going with this. How can people do this, Krista?
There's so many pieces in that, but looking at, is the fear valid, and can you actually change your perspective of what's possible? And so, that's some of my work with people, is helping them see that there's other possibilities than the narrow frame perspective that we might already know. I had another thought in there, but
I like what you just said though, is are the fears valid? So many times, and you and I have done this, everyone who's achieved things has done this, where you look at a certain problem, you get fearful about it, and then if you really step back, change the perspective, take a look at it from a different angle, all of a sudden it starts to shape shift. All of a sudden it's not the same problem anymore. All of a sudden it's not that difficult, and you can now overcome that problem. That's actually really, really good advice. What are some of the things you're seeing with real estate investors today that they have to deal with that maybe wasn't there when you started in 2003, 2004? Or actually, for you, that's when you and Jared started in 2003. My understanding is you actually had started previous to Jared, so that's great.
Yeah, I'm going to come to that in 1 second, because a thing that is still common, I believe, for people getting into real estate investing, which is what I was thinking of before. A lot of people are under the impression that real estate is a headache, so that they get these stories from who knows who, that it's such a nightmare to have tenants, or it's so, all these horror stories. They don't even know the source of that or the truth of that. But likely, and most often what we've seen, is the people who have those stories, they weren't coming into it professionally. They weren't coming into it with with help and guidance from other professionals who know what they're doing. It's just some person who, you know, decides to do that, but doesn't really know what they're doing and doesn't educate themselves. So that's a thing that we've seen back then. Multiple people, you know, family were telling us, you're crazy. It's going to be a nightmare to be a landlord. That's still relevant today. So don't ask the people who've only have negative things to say about it. Do your research and ask people who have positive experiences about it too. And then make your own decision from there. As far as things that have changed since we could get into the fundamentals of getting approved for financing is a different challenge than it was for us. So there's logistically things are different that way, but it's still possible.
Well, and actually speaking of this, you know, listening to uneducated people or people that are just, you know, they've had a legitimate bad experience, but it doesn't mean because they had a bad experience that everyone's going to have a bad experience. And I've dealt with a lot of people. In fact, a lot of the investors I work with are exactly in that thing where they say, I love the investment of real estate. I love the ROI in real estate, but I do not like the work in real estate. So here's some money. Why don't you go put it to work? And I'll just collect my check at the end of the year. And that's fantastic, because I would say, Krista, you're 100% right. There's real estate is a business, and you guys know, because you're in business and I've been in business for the last 15 years, having built and sold 7 different companies. Real estate is just another business. It's got clients, it's got problems, and actually that's why you're in business, is to solve problems. So if you had no problems in business, I would say then you're not being of real value. So you really, I don't call them problems. It's just work. You're going to deal with, there's work in a real estate business. The problem, I think, and I think you'll agree, I'm curious, the problem is the real estate pundits who have created this story around real estate that it's all this passive cash flow that rains on you, you know, without doing any work. That's, to me, that doesn't exist. That's bullshit.
Well, we could generalize that into being an entrepreneur or business. I mean, it doesn't come without work. There's no magic pill. So in my experience, maybe someone else has gone a different way.
I agree.
You gotta go, but that's the learning. And I mean, you know, Gary Vee comes to mind in his talk about hustle. Like you have to have some hustle. You have to work at it. You have to, if you want what you want, which is to create a financial future that's more secure, why wouldn't there be some work? And the other thing is we can't generalize. There's many ways to get into a real estate investment. So, you know, some person could do every aspect of the portfolio or the investment, and another person could maybe just be the money guy. There's many ways to become a real estate investor. So the way we did it isn't necessarily the way everybody needs to do it. And, you know, we're doing all aspects of it, but, you know, you can hire a property manager or partner with somebody. Lots of potential.
Yeah. So, Krista, we'll end on this question, and this has been so helpful to me, and I know it's been helpful to people that are watching. You know, you're coming back to Acre again this year. You've been in this game now for going on almost 20 years. I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. It's been almost 20 years. You continually are going back to events. You're educating yourself. You're speaking at events. You're in the game of education, not only providing, but also getting consistently. We all are. Why stay in that game of education when you could be running just your real estate business on a day-to-day basis? Why stay in this game?
Well, it's how one stays relevant and on top of things, because things are always changing and growing and morphing, and there's many answers to that. But growth, like there's always room for growth. We will never get to a place where, and actually, I don't actually get to come to this Acre. I sure wish that I could, but I'm actually at another workshop for my own, like my coaching work. So in an instant I would be there if I could, but I'm already. But
that's the common thread I see over and over and over again from the high achievers in any industry, and especially real estate, where where people keep coming back to the workshops. They keep coming to Acres. This is there's been 27 years of Acres here. And there are people who've been coming for 27 years. And people
awesome.
say to them, and I laugh, I chuckle, because they say, why do you keep coming to Acre? But every year they become more and more successful. And whatever that means to them, they've either achieved their beliefs, they've achieved their why. And as a result, they keep coming back. So of course, if you're being successful, don't stop doing what's made you successful, you know?
Well, that's right. And surround yourself with your peers and come and share in the wealth of your knowledge with other people. There's so many great reasons to keep it involved.
Beautiful. Well, that's great. Krista, thank you so much for taking the time today and doing this. I'm sad I'm not going to see you at Acre now, but thank you again for doing this, and thanks for inspiring us and being so great about it.
Thanks for your time, and I'm sure I'll see you soon.
All right. Cheers.
Take care.